Welcome back. My name's Nicole Bandis. Make sure you grab your whip and your favorite drink because today we are going to be talking about the Premier Just Yarn. We're going to do up a couple of swatches and go over a pretty good review to see how this works out. Now, if you've been watching these for a while, I want you to stay tuned because I am getting better and better about reviewing these and making sure that I nail down the details to make these as objective as I possibly can. And if you want to just get to, the nuts and bolts, the scorecard, we'll make sure to link the time code for that down below, but I really recommend that you stay tuned for the whole thing because then you'll be able to score quite a bit of this based on your own assessment. So let's dive right in. This is the Premier Just Yarn Worsted, and if you're not familiar, this yarn is actually available from the Dollar Tree. Now, they also have it on their website, but it's Just Yarn Value on their website, which means that it's a much bigger skein. But I wanted to go ahead and test the Dollar Tree version, which is probably the same, just in a smaller size. So we're going to go ahead and start with our first swatch, which will be a single crochet. And because I'm getting better and better at doing these objectively, we are going to do 60 stitches. And what does the math work up to that? 20 stitches per row for 3 rows, just so that we can and then we're going to do that again for the double crochet. So let's dive right in here. Premier, if you're not familiar, is a brand that is generally only available in certain locations. It is, of course, available on their website and a hand select few other places, oftentimes like a Big Lots or Dollar Trees, those kind of places that are discount type dealers. I have not seen it at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or any of those kind of places. Let me know if you have any other local type places that you can find the Premier yarn in your area, and maybe hopefully others can kind of pick it up as well. Now, on the first feel, I have to say that compared to like a Red Heart, it is definitely a softer acrylic. This is a 100% acrylic, which often is not my favorite, although I am definitely learning that not all acrylics are made alike. So some of them are actually somehow, I'm not quite sure what they do to them, but they're much, much softer than others. I mean, if you think about what acrylic actually is, it's plastic, so it makes sense that it's not going to be super soft. So it's kind of an interesting concept overall. I am using the 5.5 millimeter hook as recommended on the label. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the label. This comes in 109 yards, 100 meters, 50 grams. So you are at that 100% acrylic. It is a medium 4-weight yarn. The hook size recommended is a 5.5 millimeter. It is machine wash, warm, tumble dry with low heat. That is all good information on there. And this is the colorway Ruby, lot 305. Made in Turkey. If you're not familiar, Turkey is actually, they make a lot of yarns. Turkey is very popular for making a wide variety of yarns. Now, Premier does have their own website, so if you're looking for some of the Premier yarns, you can certainly go to premier.com and order this. Again, it's not the Just Yarn worsted. The label on that says Just Yarn value, and it comes in I believe it's a 400 gram size as opposed to the 50 gram size, or 400 yards. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but it is a much, much larger skein overall than the Dollar Tree size, which makes total sense. I mean, if you're spending $1.25 on yarn, you're not going to get a whole lot out of it. But we will be talking about how expensive, how it rates as far as price goes, and even considering I'm getting even more objective on that too. So I've broken it down to cost per yard, and everything is going to be ranked on that. Now, color range for this, if you go to the Dollar Tree, you're only going to have probably 6 or 7 different color options. It really depends on the Dollar Tree, the location that you go to, which one you go to, where you're located. Oh, sometimes even just the season. It varies so greatly, but there's never going to be more than usually about 10 different colors. Now, if you order it on the website, you will actually get somewhere closer to 40 colors. They list 40 different colors, but they weren't all available. Several of them were discontinued, so that is definitely something else to kind of consider. Okay, so we have our 20 and 30. And I definitely think I'm going to have to revise this because I would rather have a shorter one with more rows. So I will be right back. All right, so we have finished our 4 rows of 15 stitches to get our 60 stitch count, and we will trim that. Next, we are going to do our double crochet, and again, we're going to do 15 stitches in 4 rows to get that 60 stitch count and see overall. We use that for our splitting factor. That way we can say how many times has the yarn split within a 120 count stitches count. So far, I haven't gotten a single split on this, so that's always a good sign. That's not the only variable, of course, but splitting this is definitely one of those things that many, many people are not a big fan of. Now, I have to say, as I work with this, the feel of it is sort of getting less and less soft in my hand. The initial sort of touch when you pick up the skein, it feels pretty nice overall, but then as you start to use it, or at least as I'm using it on here, I can start to kind of feel a little bit more of that scratchiness. Certainly it's not as bad as like a red heart where I want to put it down right away. I can use this, but for me personally, who have some scratch sensitivities, I would have to limit how much I actually use this in one sitting, or it's gonna get really irritating for me overall. I am notice some fluffs here and there, a little bit of nubs as I am working with the yarn. So there's definitely kind of a little bit of that fuzz factor going on. As I was reading some of the reviews for this, most of the reviews were pretty amazing overall. People were really loving this yarn. They love how soft it is, particularly compared to a Red Heart. They loved the color range options. They loved the vibrancy and all of those good things that you would normally want. Some of the negative reviews that I read include things like the red has a tendency to bleed. The yarn has a tendency to get fuzzy when you work with it, as well as when you wash it and work up the project. So those are definitely some things to kind of keep in mind as you consider what you want in a project yarn. I certainly would not pair the red with a white without doing some color blocking first. Color, not blocking, locking, dear. That's what we want to do. We want to lock the color. And that will probably help with some of the bleeding. I would also highly recommend using some color, what are they called? Color stoppers. They're little sheets that you can throw in the washer with you that collect any sort of color dye that comes off in the water so that it doesn't get on the other colors in the water. So if something is bleeding red, it's going to gather up all that red dye so that it doesn't get onto the whites in your wash. Those can certainly help with some of that. And if you're not familiar with these, I will link to an Amazon affiliate link for those down in the notes below. You are more than welcome to buy those in just about any store that you can find, like grocery stores. They're all over the place, Walmart's for sure. But, if you're not sure what to look for, that Amazon link will help you. Here we have our 2 swatches, our double crochet and our single crochet, and you can see how those work up together. So let's go ahead and dive into our review. And I have my cheat sheets over here, and I've even printed out a cute little scorecard so we can keep track of all of this goodness. Okay, so let's start with the fiber. Now, fiber, this is a basic synthetic, low-cost acrylic. And based on my new criteria, which puts the luxury brands with a 5 granny square and the poor quality harsh synthetics as a 1 granny square, the basic synthetic is going to be a 2. I wouldn't even put this into the high quality acrylic because it's still just kind of a workhorse. So we're going to give this 2 granny squares. Okay, feel. Now the feel range goes from 5 being super cloud-like with boutique softness, no irritation, totally fun and safe for babies, down to 1 being super abrasive, and that I would put kind of almost like the scrubby yarns, the yarns that are used for scrubbies, that have there's some of those that I cannot use. So I would probably put this into a standard. It is not soft, and but it's not like sandpaper at all. It's perfect for home decor, and it's probably even doable for a low grade garment, kind of a workhorse type garment that you might want to use. So we're going to put that in the 3. All right, now color range, we're going to base this off of the fact that if I were to go to Dollar Tree, I'm going to get less than 10 of these color options. If I go to Premier Yarns, I can get as many as 40 on a good day, but usually it's more like 34 or so because a lot of the colors are not option or are they're sold out. That's the word I'm looking for, sold out. So we're going to kind of base this right in the middle of that, and we're going to say it's 2. 2 is more than 10, but less than 20. And I'm kind of calling the difference on that because most people are going to pick this up at a Dollar Tree. They're not going to go online. And that's where I bought it. So there you go. Now splitting. 5 is flawless. You could go on autopilot, not even thinking about it. 1 is a nightmare, constant struggle, over 10% of the splits. This is based on 120 stitches, which is 60 per, and I got 0 splits. So we're going to give that a 5. Now stitch definition. A 5 is where it's super crisp and clear, ideal for cables and lace work. A 1 is completely indistinguishable. You can't tell it from Adam, so this might be your eye lace or something like that. This is going to be really kind of right in there with your 3. There is definitely some decent stitch definition, but there's also a lot of fuzz, a lot of fluffiness to this yarn, so those kind of get a little bit lost. We'll give that a 3. Okay, time for our drape test. Now, the drape test has a tendency to use a little bit of gravity, and that's going to be based on 1 where it completely falls directly over when I hold it with one hand, versus does it kind of hang there? Is there some, fold over, but maybe not entirely folding over, all the way down to, I can hold this out and it stands up on its own. So let's kind of see where we get this. Okay, so that's a pretty decent fold over. There is, let me try it with the single crochet. It's kind of the same, it definitely folds for sure. It actually lays pretty flat when I set it down without any curl. We're going to give this I'm going to give this a 4. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the drape on this. It has a pretty good drape. All right, let's do a little ribbit test. Let's see here. How does it flow? Okay, so it's not what I would call butter. It's not snagging at all, but it does you can see the yarn stretch as I go through. And it's not just kind of whoosh. So with that little bit of stretch in there, we're going to give this a 4. Now, washability. So as I mentioned, one of the concerns was that the red has a tendency to bleed. So I did a little bit of a pre-swatch soak on this. The water was just barely tinged a light shade of, it was almost unnoticeable. I had to really look at it to say, okay, yeah, maybe there's some pink in there. Now, that was just a brief test, so I think, we would have to do a better kind of assessment of that. So I'm going to leave that part to the warnings and bonuses, and we're going to say that this is a bulletproof. Bulletproof means that you pretty much can't do wrong with this. Throw it in the washer, throw it in the dryer, you're good to go. Okay, now price per yard. This is a new one. I'm getting very, very scientific about these, and this is based on the price per yard. So for both the Just Yarn worsted from the Dollar Tree, or if you went to Premier and you ordered it online for the Just Yarn value, both of those come in at 2 cents or less per yard. And that puts it at the ultra budget friendly. So that's definitely a 5 on that. Now, the warnings and bonuses, I've changed this section. If you've been watching these for a bit, I have changed this one. This is no longer on a 5 granny squares, but this can be a plus or a minus just to kind of make an additional factor. We're going to do the math based on these 9 criteria, and then this one either gives it a plus or a minus overall. So because of the color issues on that, I am going to give this a -1. But because it is something that seems to be very well reviewed and everybody loves it, I'm going to give it a +2. So that gives it an additional point overall. So let's go ahead and add these up and do the math. Okay, so now, don't you love my chicken scratches? We have a 3.6 out of 5. That's what we give the Just Yarn by Premier, is a 3.6 out of our 5-point scale. Now, what I would love to know is how you scored this yarn. Did you follow along with me with your own sheet and give it your own score? I really want to know what your score came out to be, if you gave it a higher or a lower number. If you've used this yarn, let me know what you've made out of it before and what you think of it overall. And of course, if you have a yarn that you would love to see me review, please let me know what that is in the comments below. I would love to get your ideas and suggestions on future yarn reviews. And thank you so much. We'll see you next week on another Crochet Swatch Saturday. Farrah, frog us out of here.